now.
Hi, everybody. This is McKenna Pruitt, Emerald Ambassador. I'm here with Carissa Casey, who's a Sapphire Ambassador.
What?
And we are going to talk to you about Chapter 5, which is Step 2 in the Secret Code to Success. I'm going to go ahead and apologize about my voice. I truly believe, like Jessica said, Satan is trying to keep this information out of y'all's hands. So my voice has been a little bit attacked the last few days, but we're going to push through it because this is too important and we want y'all to know about this. So we, first of all, are just really excited about the month that we have coming up. And Carissa and I were talking about how perfect talking about our mindset is and getting in a place where we are knowing what is expected of us, knowing what we're capable of, knowing how to encourage our teams, because we have a leaders retreat contest just around the corner. So this is the perfect information for us to be studying as we are headed into that season. And I'm going to let Carissa kick off this chapter with talking about loving mirrors, and then we'll get going.
Okay. So the idea of having loving mirrors as opposed to whatever mirror you have been using for your life up until now, right? And I really resonated a lot with this analogy that he kept coming back to about our eyes. He kept talking about how you know what color your eyes are, but when you think about it, the only reason you're able to know that information is because you rely on outside sources to tell you. You either have to be told by people you know what color your eyes are, or you have to look in a mirror to be told what color your eyes are. You are incapable of determining what color your eyes are just by trying hard enough or looking from within. You rely on other people, other devices in order to know that information about yourself. And he kept coming back to the fact that that's exactly the same as how are we going to know our own value and our own potential and our own capabilities if all we're doing is using our own knowledge and our own information? We're unable to do that. It's not possible. So let me read you a couple of little quotes that I first off really liked about that whole analogy. He said, "This is the opposite of what they taught us in traditional success programs. No matter how hard you work, no matter how long you try or how motivated you are, you can never see your own eyes by looking from within yourself. You can never see them without the help of something or someone outside of you." And then, how many times have you tried to psych yourself up and do what your mentors have told you to do? Be positive, believe in yourself, set your goals. And he says, how has that been working from you? You can keep trying to put a nail in the wall with a chainsaw, or you can pick up a hammer. And he finally tells us what the hammer is. The hammer is the support of the people who believe in you more than you believe in yourself. So he really highlights the fact that we absolutely positively depend on other people to determine an accurate identity. You probably have experienced this some in your life, but when you are forming your identity, other people tend to have a lot more facts rather than skewed opinions, and B, a lot more grace. So it's very interesting and almost biblical, right, McKenna? Just this idea of grace and truth, and that other people can look at you with both more truth and more grace. And so it's very, very valuable and necessary to be using other people as you form that identity and as you form that picture of your value and your potential. So a loving mirror is a person who gives you unconditional support. Just like you can never see your own eyes from looking within yourself, you can never fully understand your true value from within yourself. It takes the loving support and encouragement from someone like a friend, teacher, coach, or mentor to show you what you're truly capable of. He said that in his seminars, the number one argument the number one objection that he gets when he teaches this concept is people who say, but I don't have anyone who unconditionally supports me. And he's really big in this chapter about not making excuses. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But he says, most of us were not born into a family of loving mirrors. You can find them as an adult. And so he's always bringing us back to this idea of personal responsibility. You have to find opportunities. You're an adult and you have to find opportunities to grow. And so the first one he highlights is we've got to find the people who are going to be our loving mirrors. So McKenna and I were chatting about that and saying some of the really good places to look are at a church, getting involved in a church or getting involved in a community group, going to see a counselor. We're really big on that. Kind of all the leaders on this team are big on that and have done that. Former role models, thinking back on people in your life that maybe taught you or mentored you and asking them to be a mirror for you. And then real quick, I just want to state again about this, that the idea behind this is you are gathering facts from these people, because so much of the time, what the image we create of ourselves without the help of other people, or sometimes it's with the help of people who have been feeding us lies. But the image we create for ourselves is based on lies. It's not based on true facts. So I actually really liked that on page 99 of our book, he gives us some specific questions to ask people as we're seeking out loving mirrors, asking them, what do you get out of me being in your life? What have you gained from our relationship? What would be missing if I weren't in your life? What do you see as my strengths? What can I do differently to improve our relationship? So he gives you some really good questions that'll help you get actual truth from people, and that'll help you start to redefine your identity in a more gracious, loving way. So McKenna wants to share a little bit now about safe havens.
So the safe havens, as we were discussing it, we decided, and he defines, it's more from the business aspect of somebody who knows your potential, they believe in you, but they're also going to be more of that accountability partner where they're going to hold you to those actions. So he mentions like a personal trainer. It's somebody that you're giving permission to say, okay, I'm willing to be coached. I'm willing for you to hold me to this and make sure I'm doing the actions that we know I'm capable of, that you believe I'm capable of. So the personal trainer, we also thought the loving mirror and the safe haven both tied into the example of the death crawl that he mentioned. The coach knew that this football player, he was a loving mirror. He knew the true strength this football player had within him. And on top of that, he was also this coach, this mentor that pushed him to it. He was the safe haven that brought him to that place of being able to do the death crawl where he thought he could only do it to the 30-yard line, with the coaches saying, don't quit, don't stop, I'm holding you to this. He pushed him all the way to the full length of the football field. So we both thought that was a good example of both of these. But what I found was one of my biggest takeaways in this chapter was that he says, after talking about the loving mirrors and the safe havens, he says, and this is my favorite quote here, bottom line, if you want to be happy and rich, you must find loving mirrors for your life, and you must find safe havens for your business. There is no way around this. And this is the part that really struck me. He said, loving mirrors and safe havens form the very core of the secret code of success, for the very reason that you can't see your own value. If you don't do this step, there is no reason for you to do anything else. So that really struck me, saying, okay, he's saying this is the core. You have to have support. You have to have accountability partners, coaches, people who are going to see who you really are, believe in you, and depart that into you, and then hold you to it. I also liked how he talked about you're digging for a gold mine. You have these qualities within you, these strengths, these gifts within you that you're trying to unearth. And I love how he talks about trying to succeed without the support of people around you is like you're standing on a gold mine, digging away with a teaspoon, when right behind you, you didn't know, but all along you have a brand new, never been used backhoe, which is the support of others. And that to me was just shows the vast difference between you trying to succeed on your own versus you accessing the support and the unconditional love from the others around you. And I just really love that picture. And knowing the 3% of people who already grew up with that and have it and are used to it, they don't necessarily know that's part of their success, but it really is. And if you don't have that, if you feel like the people around you are pulling you down or naysaying over your life, you need to release yourself from that and seek the people who will pull you up and will tell you the true things about you, the facts that that you know are in there. One thing that we did not actually, Chris and I didn't talk about, but I love how he mentions if you hear all these voices going back and forth in your head of the distortions, the things that you think are negative about yourself, those are the things that are loud. But if you sit and get really still and just shut everything out, you will hear the truths come through. And I love that because in the Bible, it tells us the voice of God is like a still, quiet whisper. And we've been talking some about rest and making sure you take a Sabbath. And I think that's a big part of this too, that you have to be quiet and still kind of by yourself to where you're shutting off the other voices to know what those lies are. One of the other big parts, one of my biggest takeaways was how he kept talking about how everything we do, if we want to have success, it all stems from bringing value to others. Whether it's earning money, it's because you're trading a value to someone and they're giving money back for that. And even in talking to these other people trying to get their support, you need to figure out how it will benefit them. How can you be a value to them? So you have to see that value in yourself, but you also have to know how you can give that value to others. So a couple of the quotes that I loved from that part. He said, people really don't care how much of a degree you have, but they care to the degree to which you can help them. And he says, they need to know the benefit for them. And I feel like especially for a safe haven, I feel like this ties in more in the business. You're going to value someone more as a business partner, or like with Plexus on our teams, more than that loving mirror that is just going to be there to kind of show you who you are. So I also love that he says, if you want to get somebody to do something for you, you'd better find out how it's going to benefit them. When you stop talking about the benefit to you and start communicating the benefits to them, that's when you're going to gain the leverage you need to succeed. The bottom line of human behavior is things get very easy when you're always talking about how the other person benefits. And I love how he even goes as far as to say unsuccessful people complain that the world isn't doing enough for them. The world isn't supporting them. On the other hand, the 3%ers, they shut up, they get to work, and they show other people how they can be a benefit in supporting them. So that made me step back to think, which mindset am I in right now? Am I in the victim mindset of thinking, this is, woe is me, nobody's supporting me? Or am I looking outside of myself to say, okay, maybe I'm not getting what I need right now, so I need to look and see what I can be doing for others so that I can gain that in return. And Carissa had some really good insights about this too that she was going to share.
Yeah. It's kind of a big, just Chris and I feel strongly about this anyway. We talk about it a lot, just this idea of taking extreme responsibility. And he talks about, like, if you're old enough to read this book, you're old enough to start creating opportunities for yourself to get out of the place that you're in. So he talks about it from several standpoints, not just with excuse making, but let's say you do go out and you try to create opportunities to build support around yourself. That's what this whole chapter is about. Don't just sit back and go, where are my supporters? Where are my support? I wasn't born into a family of any supporters. That's why I have nothing and no one. You go out and you create these opportunities for yourselves very intentionally. And once you start creating these opportunities for yourself, you have to be very careful and intentional about not destroying the opportunities you're trying to create. And one of the big things he says is, like, let's say, this is kind of one of the upsides to going out and surrounding yourselves by these supporters is if you share with them, well, I have these, such and such negative impressions of myself. They may very well look back at you and say, where did you get that negative opinion of yourself? That is just totally not accurate, and give you a much more factual, truthful, gracious understanding. But if you seek out a supporter and they offer you constructive criticism, or they say, you know, this is a fault of yours, or this is a fault in our relationship, he says you cannot argue, you cannot defend, and you cannot make excuses for yourself. You can't come back saying, oh, I was sick that day, I wasn't feeling well, somebody did this to me when I was 6 years old. He says if you start launching into excuses or defenses or arguments, you are going to diminish yourself in that person's eyes, and you will have lost that opportunity to grow. Also, McKenna and I were talking about how, like, people desperately just want to be heard and tell their story, and not to be made to feel wrong. So it goes that same way when you're seeking out support in the form of loving mirrors and safe havens. These people do not want you to convince them that they're wrong about you. So he gives just some really healthy advice. If somebody does give you some feedback that's hard to swallow, rather than saying, what are you talking about? I'm always nice to you, I'm always doing stuff for you. He says, saying things like, wow, that's not very good. So what's going on that I don't know about? Or, wow, I didn't know I was doing so poorly. What can I do to make it better? I mean, guys, that's extreme adulthood right there. That is taking responsibility. What can I do to make it better? So that I wanted to just chat about that briefly, but McKenna, was that the last thing we wanted to talk about? Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So those were our big high points. And then he also gives several action steps in this chapter. Because like he said, 97% of people are not just finding these, loving mirrors and safe havens naturally in their circles. And I love, you pointed it out too, those 3% that are finding it very easy to be successful. Most of them have this type of support system, and that is what gave them permission to be successful, so that they didn't need to give themselves permission to be successful. But 97%, the rest of us, are having to find ways to give ourselves permission to be successful, and that comes straight from this concept. So I also, let me say one more thing too. McKenna, you pointed out how this is the core. If you're not willing to go out and seek the support of others, then you don't even really have any business trying to do anything else in the book. And that was eye-opening for me too, because I know a few people who, in Plexus specifically, just kind of want to do it on their own. And what they say is, well, I don't want to ask for help, or I'm just going to do it on my own. And let's see if I can find it real quick. He says, there we go. So here's what he says about that. If you insist on being the lone wolf, like many of his students did when they first came to him, then you are going to struggle for a long, long time. So like you said, this is not, it's not noble, or I guess like strong to be like, I'm just going to do this on my own. It's a sure way to fail. So really, really interesting.
Using the teaspoon when the backhoe is right there, and you could pick either one. Why would you want to pick the teaspoon?
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it is pride, and a lot of it is it's not comfortable. We're so comfortable with the identity we've created for ourselves that's based in lies and based in just guesses, like, well, maybe my eyes are brown, so let's go with that. Like, that's the identity we've created for ourselves, and we're comfortable with it. So I think it is frightening. It's certainly vulnerable to go up to someone you trust and say, I really value you, I respect your opinion. Could you share with me, some of my strengths and weaknesses? Could we chat about, the value I offer to the world? Yikes, that is vulnerable. I mean, it's no wonder people would rather just flounder around on their own. But, once your eyes are opened to what you're actually doing to yourself when you attempt to do it that way, we kind of can't go on doing it that way anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you all. I hope that you guys will continue to tune in for these amazing chapters, and I'm loving hearing from all the jewels. So I'm looking forward to the next couple.
Yes, and like Jessica has said, especially with this chapter, I feel like we're just now kind of getting to the heart. He says this is a crucial, really one of the crucial steps. So it's not too late to jump in if you haven't started yet. You can just jump right in there with affirmations with this chapter because it's all very valuable, very necessary. So don't let the fact that you're behind keep you from jumping in.
Yeah, and we wanted to say this too, like take responsibility for your team as well. Oftentimes we say like your mindset is your biggest asset in this business and your mindset is your team's biggest asset in this business. So, connecting with them one-on-one and saying it's not too late. I mean, anything is better than nothing. So if they're just watching the videos each week, great. Or if they can't get a copy of the book, but they can read the free PDF online, great. So much value to working on your mindset with your team. So good night, everybody.
Thank y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.